Hello and welcome everybody to our Open EDU class today. Welcome as you all get yourself situated for this class. I'm gonna just do a couple of housekeeping. First, we're so excited to welcome Sulaiman Khan. Thank you so much for being here. Sulaiman is one of our fellows this year at the Slow Factory, Research Fellow. The class today is Access Intimacy for Collective Liberation. Thank you so much for Jeremy and Shahrazad for being here and interpreting. Flamingo, the company Flamingo is amazing. Flamingo Interpretation, shout out. Thank you all for being here. As you all set yourself up for the class, please use the chat and make sure that you are clicking on everyone so everyone can read the chat. If you need the show caption, they are at the bottom of your screen or on the top of your screen if you are not in full screen. And please use Q&A to put all of your questions for this amazing class today. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Sulaiman. Thank you all for being here and talk soon.
Hey. Thank you so much. Everyone's super excited to be here. A few quick things. So my pronouns are he, him, his, and disabled. And my disability pronouns are disabled and wheelchair user. And a quick visual description of myself is that I'm a wholeheartedly disabled man. I'm currently laying horizontally in bed. I have a ventilator mask over my nose, and I'm wearing an amazing, colorful sequin jacket, because why not? Next slide, please. Yeah, so let me just start by telling you a bit about myself. I wanted to highlight this amazing photo of me, and yes, that is a real meerkat on my head, because why not? Again, that's how I roll. And it's just a picture of me in Paradise Wildlife Park with sunglasses and a baseball cap and a meerkat sitting on my head. Next point, please. So, I am a disabled as fuck and British Pakistani man, and I'm an adventurer and a continual work in progress, and I daringly integrate disability. Next slide, please. Next point. And so my life's work and life's goal are to create radical, infinite access intimacy as defined by neolinguist, post-ableism, and disability liberation. Next slide, please. And I'm the founder and chief radical officer of this Ability Limited. Next slide, please. And so I am infinitely a radical with Adrak, Haldi, Zafran, and Jameli Manasri. So for those of you who don't know, this is in Urdu, and Adrak is ginger, Haldi is turmeric, Zafran is saffron, and Jameli is jasmine, because that's what I am, all those spicy things. Next slide, please. So, like all of my clients, all of my presentations, I always love to start with a community commitment. I think it's really important to set the tone how we expect to show up for ourselves. So our first community commitment is that this is going to be a safe and free space. There's going to be no shade and no judgment. And we are going to be open-minded, open-hearted, and ready to learn and unlearn. Next slide. And this is going to be a space for interdependence and love. And finally, we are going to be radical. And on the far right, we have a on the far right, we have a wonderful gift of an amazing deaf activist, Nanda Walker, who's signing Spread Love in the American Sign Language. We have bright red letters that say Spread Love, because that's what we're going to do today. Let's go. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I love quotes, I wanted to open up with a quote, and the quote is by myself, and the quote is, open quote, radical answers are sustained by radical questioning. I think it's really important to really dig deep on what that means and really understand that we have to be willing to ask questions and be willing to look for the answers and sit still with the answers and not run away to one question to another question. So I think it's really important to, work with radical answers that are sustained by radical questioning. Next slide, please. So to start, I just wanted to highlight what we're covering in today's class. So we are going to explore how disability and disabled people live and love in new ways of being and moving towards a just, liberated, and regenerative future and the processes. And we are going to talk about how disabled people are treated by society in relationships and what society can learn from the love of disability. I think that's really, really important. So the next thing that we're going to learn is what is the nature of intimacy when you're disabled, and how can the intimate, loving, interdependent relationships that disabled peoples are experts at forming be applied more widely to nature and regeneration. Really looking forward to it. So we have 5 quick sections. We have destroy ableism, define access intimacy, the power of access intimacy, and AI in collective liberation. And finally, we go into the real AI future. Next slide, please. So I wanted to start very quickly with a few very important stats. And in case you don't know this, so disabled people are the world's largest minoritized community, 1.3 billion people and counting, and we are a $13 trillion market. However, for myself, I'm super keen not to commoditize disability or disabled people. I think often when we talk about the business case, there's a huge problem because there was a business case for slavery, and look how that turned out, not very well. And on the far right, we have a wonderful gift of Chloe and Harry, who are amazing American artists, and they have an animated text that says iconic. Next slide, please. Cool. Another very important stat is that 80% of disability is acquired in someone's lifetime, and the older you get, you're already disabled, whether you accept it or not. And disabled people are at the sharp end of daily global oppressive systems and structures, yet we are always forgotten and erased in conversations and solutions around intimacy, sex, and relationships. And they have another wonderful animated gift on the right side of Chloe and Harry dropping a blue animated mic, doing a mic drop moment. Next slide, please. So on to our first section, destroy ableism. So what is this? So we are going to be defining ableism, and we understand that it's critical to destroy it because ableism is something that we don't consider but impacts all of us. So we have a wonderful gift of now DeMarco, and he says, as fuck, because that's why we need to destroy ableism. Next slide, please. So I think this is a very, very important slide, and on each section I was going to start with a quote, and this is one of my favorite quotes, so I'm going to read it out for our friends today. So we have open quote, it's learning how to stand alone, unpopular, sometimes reviled, and how to make common cause with those identified as outside the structures in order to define and seek a world in which we can all flourish. It is learning how to take our differences and make them strengths. For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us to temporarily to beat him at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about genuine change. Close quote. I think that's really, really important in dismantling ableism and destroying ableism as well. Next slide, please. So I wanted to highlight this definition of ableism, which is the working definition of ableism, and this definition is by Talila T.R. Lewis, and Talila is a black disabled lawyer and activist based in the US, and Talila writes that ableism is a system of assigning value to people's bodies and minds based on societally constructed ideas of normalcy, productivity, desirability, intelligence, excellence, and fitness. These constructed ideas are deeply rooted in eugenics, anti-blackness, misogyny, colonialism, imperialism, and capitalism. This systemic oppression leads people and society determining people's value based on their culture, age, language, appearance, religion, birth or living place, health/wellness, and or the ability to satisfactorily produce, reproduce, excel, and behave. You do not have to be disabled to experience ableism. I'm going to read that last sentence again because I think that's critical. You do not have to be disabled to experience ableism. And often when we see definitions of ableism, it just says, it's a discrimination against disabled people, but it doesn't really account for things like anti-blackness, eugenics, capitalism, and this is why I truly love this definition of ableism, because it really highlights my own lived experience as a person of color, as a disabled man. So I think this is something that I really, really find really powerful, and to really understand it in its true meaning. Next slide, please. So ableism kills all of us. I think it's important to recognize that the ableism is something that is intertwined into racism and capitalism and colonialism, and it's really important to understand that. And this is why we should just fuck ableism, like capitalism and colonialism, just get rid of them all. And for me, it is a deliberate and intentional choice to have a lowercase ableism, and because I think the systems of oppression, they don't deserve a capital letter, and that's how I decided to roll. Next slide, please. So how does society treat us in relationships? I think it's important to recognize that according to a 2014 survey from Scope, which is a disability charity here in the UK, and as reported in the BBC article, 44% of rich who were sampled wouldn't consider having sex with someone who has a physical disability. Next point, please. 50% wouldn't rule out the possibility. And an excerpt from the BuzzFeed article was published in December 2021 that highlights the misconceptions very, very clearly. So, open quote, assuming a disabled person is non-sexual or undesirable in any able-bodied or non-disabled person is suggesting that disabled people are automatically excluded from a full range of human experience, close quote. And I think it's really important to recognize that, a lot of these statistics is really not surprising considering the perceptions of disabled people and how we are treated and how all the different things, that the discrimination that we face, which is, society on the whole often doesn't even like to say the word disability. They think it's a bad word, and it's really not. So I think it's very, very important just to acknowledge that and understand that. Next point, please. So according to a report by Disability Support UK, nearly 40% of people in the UK considered to be disabled, to people to be a social burden. I think that's not okay at all. And disability is definitely not a burden. Next slide, please. And over 60% say they avoid disabled people since they don't know how to behave or how to act around disabled people. And that's, again, not surprising. And another very, very important fact is that in many countries, like the US, disabled people still do not have the right to marry and are often penalized for getting married. I think that's a critical point that often most people don't acknowledge, and that's something to highlight. I'm just going to hand it over to Nicole to highlight a very critical lived experience point around this. Over to you, Nicole. Or Celine.
So this is an open quote by Dominic Evans, writing for the US-based Center for Disability Rights. Open quote, "The penalty can affect people with a wide variety of disabilities, but because it does not affect every person with a disability, and because the laws that have been passed against people with disabilities who wish to get married or have sexual relationships are not always enforced, most people make a lot of assumptions about what this movement is about. I'm here to try and clarify these things. The issue of marriage equality for the disability community is not a new one. It is heavily intertwined with the movement towards eugenics, where people with disabilities were not only sterilized against their will, but also prohibited from marrying. In Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Kansas, Minnesota, and Michigan, people with intellectual disabilities, mental disabilities, and epilepsy were prevented from marrying due to a series of laws that were passed in the early 20th century. Other states used legislation prohibiting anyone they considered to have a genetic defect from marrying. To this day, while in some instances the law is unenforced, most of these laws have never been repealed." Close quote.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And the reason why I asked Nicole and the Snow Factory to read that out around the fact for me having a short break is this is the true meaning of interdependence, working in love and interdependence and access intimacy. Such a great way for me to highlight that. Okay, so next slide. So the problem with this is that there's a lot of injustice when it comes to disability and relationships. And there's a common misconception that disabled folks don't desire and can't be in meaningful relationships. However, this couldn't be further from the truth. And beyond intimacy, society truly ignores and erases disabled people in every aspect of our lives. And most people are so scared to say or do anything around disability that they don't even know how to interact with disability. And I think that's a real challenge that we need to change and just, go up to disabled people and say hello, because like it's okay. Okay, next slide, please. And here we have a wonderful gift, and that disabled people are experts in forming intimate, loving, interdependent relationships, and society should learn something from us. I think it's really important how disabled people choose to live, how we actively engage with people. And I think one thing I said to my dear friend Josh, who's a disabled designer and activist in California, we were just chatting, and I said to him, isn't every relationship that disabled people have an intimate relationship? And I think that's really important to understand, because how we engage with everyone that we interact with through interdependence and love. And that's something that I truly believe in myself, and how I choose to actively live through interdependence and love. And here we have a wonderful gift of Rihanna holding up a crown and putting it on her head, which is amazing. Why not? Next slide, please. And so, to give it a bit more wider context, I think it's important to acknowledge that there's a lack of accessibility and care creating relationships for disabled people. And disabled people are not welcome, and they don't need fixing or curing. Society needs to fix and cure the ableism. And that made me laugh, and I said that out loud, and I even wrote that down. I said, yeah, definitely we need to get rid of society's ableism. I know the ableist, because enough is enough. And our interdependence and love are sacred, and society is blessed to experience it. And disabled people, especially those of the global majority, are radical and revolutionary when it comes to creating, building, and sustaining relationships. And we embody the way nature works when it's at its best and most regenerative. Through access intimacy, interdependence, and love. I think those 2 points are absolutely critical in how we create, build, and sustain relationships, and how disabled people, just embody nature and really, really embrace it, embrace the way. So a great example, a quick example of this is that if you look at mycelium, an organism that lives under the trees, under the ground, often they interact with ants, and often they're completely different organisms and species. But the ants provide the leaves to the mycelium in return creates mushrooms that the ants can eat. So it's a huge relationship. It's access, intimacy, it's interdependence, it's love. And even the humpback whales actually protect other species against killer whales in the ocean, even if they're not the same species. So again, it's the idea of interdependence, community care, access, intimacy, and love. I think that's a really important point, and disabled people, we are experts in this, in taking the lead from nature. Next slide, please. So I wanted to highlight that disabled people, all of us, are worthy of joy, tenderness, softness, pleasure, sexuality, relationships, and love. And on the right side, we have one of my favorite photos of myself. So this is in my garden here in London. This was during when the pandemic first started, so I wasn't able to leave my home for 384 days. And just at that time, I was feeling very low, but the weather was nice, so I just decided to go out in the garden, just get some healing from nature. And so here I'm just laying back in reclining in my power wheelchair. I'm wearing orange sunglasses, a sleeveless white vest that says, "Life is for deep kisses, strange adventures, midnight swims, and rambling conversations." And I'm wearing these amazing gold sequin shorts because why not? Next point, please. And so no matter how uncomfortable and unacceptable society is towards us, disabled folks are sexual beings that must have just rights and opportunities to have the liberation of choices about and access to our next point, please. Sexual expression, sexuality, next point, please, and pleasure in relationships for our lifetime. I think those 3 things are very, very important. Next point, please. But it's also important to know when I talk about pleasurable relationships, and this is with the understanding that pleasurable relationships are not purely limited to sexual or romantic relationships. Next slide, please. And I wanted to highlight this in 2 amazing pictures. So on the left, you have a picture of my amazing mama and myself a few years ago at the Olympic Park here in London. And I have the best relationship with my mom. I think she's incredible. We talk about everything from life to death to sex to relationships. So we have a very loving, open relationship. And it's amazing. And on the right side, we have a photo of myself and my best friend Danny, and how we interact with each other is so much access intimacy. It's amazing. Next slide, please. So I want to highlight that this could be a real challenge and uncomfortable topic for some people, but that's not disabled people's problem. And society, again, needs to check the ableism. And here we have a cheeky gift that says wonderfully on top, with some animated hearts and arrows. And we have the wonderful Nile DeMarco animating that in American Sign Language. Next slide, please. So, to summarize, what does society say? Society says disabled people are often seen as asexual or even hypersexual, and disabled people don't need and worse yet deserve relationships, love, support around sexuality, pleasure, and access to accessible sex education and healthcare. I think that's something we don't think about, the wider picture in terms of healthcare and education as well. And while some disabled people may be asexual, this is bullshit. And overall, I think, yet again, society must check the ableism and get out of the way. I think it's really important. I think that all human beings, I think it's important to understand that, there's no right or wrong answer, and for some disabled people, they may be asexual, whether you like it or not, and other disabled people may not be. I think that's okay as well. And that all disabled people must have the right to decide what our feelings are, what we desire for ourselves, and often things are done for disabled people and not with us. I think that's really, really important to change that and to really disrupt that and to destroy that idea. Next slide, please. And I wanted to give some first-hand lived experience of about what disabled people actually say. And this is a wonderful quote from the wonderful Kelly Gordon, who's an amazing disabled entrepreneur, one of my dear friends. And Kelly says, open quote, society can learn to be more open-minded and to handle their relationships in different ways on a daily basis. Disabled people solve so many problems, have totally open communication, and often rely on others for help. Learn to be wonderful, learn to be open, and ask for support from your partners, whether they're platonic, romantic, or intimate. And disability and pleasure is taking time to understand my body and what it is that I need to bring me pleasure. It also means being open about that with my partner so that we can both have the best experience. I also have amazing self-pleasure and take the time to love and appreciate my disabled body, the way it looks and how it works for me. Close quote. What a powerful quote. I think that really highlights, how disabled people exist and the human experience that we all have as human beings. Next slide, please. And obviously, I had to add a Beyonce gift. So here we have a wonderful gift of Beyonce wearing a wonderful outfit and a large black hat. And underneath we have text from Beyonce that says, I encourage you not to forget this power you have or to take it lightly. And this is how I feel exactly about disabled people, about who we are, and about access intimacy and the power of access intimacy. Next slide, please. So access intimacy is critical for our collective liberation. And access intimacy, it matters because it centers disabled people and accessibility, and without having us to make ourselves palatable for the oppressive, ableist, and racist world. I think that's a very, very critical point in terms of just allowing us to exist wholeheartedly as we are, without making ourselves palatable. And in the past, I used to do this a lot as a wholeheartedly disabled man. I was like really shrinking my disability. I was really forcing myself to sit vertically in the wheelchair if I on a Zoom call, and really not listening to my access needs. And I don't do that anymore, obviously. And as you can see, I can still wear sequins, so I'm happy. So next slide, please. So moving on to section 2, we are going into defining ableism. And if you could go back, so thank you. This is perfect. I just wanted to start with another favorite quote by the wonderful, incredible Angela Brown. And the quote is, open quote, liberated relationships are one of the ways we actually create abundant justice. The understanding that there is enough attention, care, resource, and connection for all of us to access belonging, to be in dignity, and to be safe in community. Close quote. And every time I read that quote, it just shouts to me, it speaks to my soul. It's just like, yes, yes, yes. And often the lie that we've been told about ableism, capitalism, racism, colonialism, there's not enough of these things for any of us. There's not enough abundance for any of us. So this is why I think it's really, really important in the work that we do around access and diversity. It just highlights it so perfectly. Next slide, please. So I wanted to highlight some thoughts for access literacy. This is for me Fingers' blog post. I'll share this in my slow journal piece. So I'm just going to read the whole quote. It's over 3 slides, so just please bear with me. It's really, really important to understand this in its totality. So this is access intimacy as defined by Fingers. Open quote. Access intimacy is that elusive, hard to describe feeling when someone gets your access needs. The kind of eerie comfort your disabled self feels when someone on a purely access level. Sometimes it can happen with complete strangers, disabled or not, or sometimes it can be built over years. It could also be the way your body relaxes and opens up with someone when, when all your access needs are being met. It is not dependent on someone having a political understanding of disability, ableism, or access. Some of the people I have experienced the deepest access intimacy, especially able-bodied people, have had no education or exposure to a political understanding of disability. Wow, wow, wow. Next slide, please. And Leah goes on to write, access intimacy is not just the action of access or helping someone. We all have experienced access that has left us feeling like a burden, violated, or just plain shitty. Many of us have experience of regulatory access where there is no intimacy, just a stoic counting down of the seconds until it's over. This is not access intimacy. There have been numerous relationships in my life where I have loved people very deeply, but never felt safe with them around my access. So many relationships where I know I could only ask for or share so much without getting snapped at, tied or being punched, being punished with reluctant, passive aggressive access so many times where I was too afraid because of lack of access intimacy to speak up and voice what I needed or what I couldn't do, resulting in being isolated or getting very badly physically hurt for pushing myself too hard in some of the worst cases. And I can totally relate to this. This has happened to me in the past so many times, but I didn't really know what access intimacy was. But this is what I felt and what I was feeling. Next slide, please. And finally, Ria continues and writes, access intimacy is not charity. Resentfulness, enacted intimidation, a humiliating trade for survival or an ego boost. In fact, all of this threatens and kills access intimacy. There is a good feeling after all you are experiencing access intimacy. It is freeing, light, loving feeling. It brings the people and the people who sorry, I'm so done. The people who are a part of it closer. It builds and deepens connection, sometimes access intimacy, and doesn't mean that everything is 100% accessible. Sometimes it looks like you're both trying to create access as hard as you can with no avail in an ableist world. Sometimes it is someone just sitting and holding your hand while you both stare back at an inaccessible world. And this whole quote felt really, really profound to me. It just speaks to my soul. It was very tender, it was very loving, and it really, really hits home. I think it's so powerful, and it just really highlights why we need to move beyond. Often, those of you who identify as disabled, often I've probably felt this, asking for access, you have to beg for access, you have to request, figure out who to email, who to call, where to get, how is it accessible. And this is why I love the Slow Factory team, because accessibility is front and center. They think about the whole community and not just some of the community. Next slide, please. And I wanted to share this amazing photo, this amazing illustration. I think it highlights what access intimacy, and this is an illustration from a project called Disabled, and here is from Affect the World, and it's a picture of a group of Black disabled queer folks talking and laughing at this sleepover, and they have different images and doing different things. One person is wearing a CPAP machine, a ventilator over their nose, and have quite joyous, loving, tender access intimacy together. And this image highlights, everything that we do and everything, how this represents access intimacy so much. I just love this illustration so much. Next slide, please. And so cool. Moving on to the power of access intimacy. So the quote that relates to this, and I love Rui, so I had to add a Rui quote. So the quote is, open quote, your task is not to seek love, but to really to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And this really, really highlights the power of access intimacy. Next slide, please. So I wanted to highlight this in terms of, this is an article from the Australian Broadcasting Station, and it says, the title says, disability, a fate worse than death, question mark. And this was written in 2013, and obviously that's not that long ago. I've seen many articles, ableist articles like this, that are so unhelpful and so problematic. I think it's really depressing how people talk and think about disability. And for me, I truly believe that existing wholeheartedly as a disabled people in an oppressive world, living in our truth, in our disability, is a radical and revolutionary act. It's really hard for me to emphasize that. I cannot emphasize that enough. I think, it's really, really important for me to say that out loud. I just want everyone to know that it's okay to be disabled. Like, you get to skip the queue at Disneyland, you get free parking. What else could you want? The next slide, please. So I want to highlight this as well, that disability is not worse than death. I'm going to say it again, I think it deserves saying again. And disability is not worse than death. And living in access intimacy and embracing it wholeheartedly is a revolutionary act for disabled people. The interdependence and love of disability that is understood that's through access intimacy is something society must learn from, and disabled people need to be taking the lead, and we need to show society just needs to listen for once. I think it's really important because, it's really hard to emphasize what's happening in the last 3 years in particular to disabled people. Really into access intimacy has changed my life. Leading into interdependence has changed my life. Leading into love in the last 3-4 years has really changed my life. So it's a very powerful concept once you truly lean into it and not be afraid to do so. Next slide, please. So going into AI for collective liberation. So I thought that was quite interesting. So AI is often considered to be a term that we use for artificial intelligence. But hey, let me just change that out to AI for access intimacy. And I wanted to share the wonderful ancestor Bell Hooks. So we have a wonderful quote by Bell Hooks. Here her wonderful quote is, open quote, one of the most the vital ways we sustain ourselves is by building communities of resistance, places where we know we are not alone. Close quote. And that really, really, really soothes my soul. It just feels nourishing to my soul. It just, yeah, I think we have to give so much credit to Black women, particularly Black and disabled women who don't get enough credit in this world. I think it's super important to highlight that. Next slide, please. So ultimately, access intimacy is interdependence and love in action. And here we have a diagram that represents access intimacy to interdependence and love using circles or closed curves within an enclosing rectangle and with common elements of change being represented by the areas that overlap amongst the circles. So we start at the very center. We have the first one, which is AI or access intimacy for inner and outer change. Then we have AI for environmental change. Then the third one, we have AI for systemic change. And then we have AI for collective change, which ultimately leads us to AI for radical change. I think this is a very powerful thing to understand and really lean into this, the interdependence and love of all of this. And next slide, please. So I wanted to go into more depth around this. So, for example, access intimacy for inner and outer change, and it's important to recognize that access intimacy starts from within, and we must first have interdependence and love with our inner and outer selves. And often we forget about that. And we had this wonderful quote that highlights this by Grace Lee Fox. Open quote, transform yourself to transform the world, close quote. I think that's something we don't recognize enough often. We want to change the world, change everything, but we're not willing to change ourselves or do the work ourselves to really heal and to support and to understand human beings, understand, all the challenges that we have within ourselves that make us ableist or racist or colonial mindset. So we need to change that, really truly deeply change ourselves. Next slide, please. And the second one, we have access intimacy for environmental change. And so access intimacy is also about the intimacy that we have between the environment in which we live and ourselves. But often we forget that. And we have a wonderful quote from the incredible Adib Dada, and Adib, he quoted, open quote, instead of fleeing from cities and looking far to find nature, why not reinvent the urban environment and grow nature in the heart of the city, close quote. I love that. I think that the work that Adib is doing is so incredible and really highlights the interaction between human and nature and the environment we are creating. I think it's so important to understand that. Okay, next slide, please. So the third part of collective change is access intimacy for systemic change. And it's important that we must understand that we are part of a wider system. And access intimacy can create systemic change for all of us. And systemic change is rooted in social justice, especially disability justice. And the 10 principles of disability justice in particular is something that we can learn from in our quest for systemic change. And I wanted to highlight this very, very powerful quote by Toby Aye, who is a somatic practitioner in breathwork and embodiment work for systemic trauma and liberation. And Toby quotes, and opens quote, the breath is one of the biggest social justice tools that we are not using, close quote. Yeah, and I'm just going to take a breath for it. I think that's really important to lean into that. I'm just going to stop for a second while the interpreters change as well. Perfect. No worries. Yeah, so this is a very powerful quote, and I think we need to understand how utilizing this, that we are part of our system, and our body is our system as well. And if we don't lean into the systems within our body, like the breath, our body, minds, our souls, how can we, do this work if we're not willing to listen to the systems within our own bodies and minds? That's really, really important. Next slide, please.
Sulaiman, it's Celine. I'm happy to read quotes for you whenever you need to. Just holler at me to give you a break.
Okay, thank you so much. That's really helpful. Thank you so much. So I wanted to very quickly, in for systemic change, highlight the 10 principles of disability justice. Is really, really important. So the first principle is intersectionality. Then you have a leadership of those most impacted, anti-capitalist politics, and then you have the fourth principle, which is a commitment to cross movement organizing. The fifth principle is organizing wholeness. Oh my days, I love this. Next slide, please. And the sixth point is sustainability. And the seventh principle is commitment to cross disability solidarity. And this eighth point is interdependence. And this ninth principle is collective access. And finally, the 10th principle is collective liberation. Oh my days, I love this so much. And when I first discovered it, it was just like my mind was just set free, my soul was released into something that was so powerful and so revolutionary for me, and really understanding how powerful this actually is and how ahead of its time it was. Because I believe this was created 15 or 16 years ago by disabled people from the global majority and disabled queer folks. And so it was something that really, really speaks to my soul. Next slide, please. Oh, and the next part is, the fourth part is access and intimacy for collective change. And so I hope most of us know that nothing is done in isolation, and access or intimacy can only be fully achieved through collective change and community care. And that's something that we forget, is the collective change and the community care. And we have one of my favorite quotes in the entire world by the incredible, wonderful, awesome Alice Wong. And the quote is, open quote, disabled people know what it means to be vulnerable and interdependent. We are modern day oracles. It's time people listen to us. Close quote. Oh my days. Isn't that amazing? I love that. Next slide, please. And finally, in our way towards change, we have to look at access intimacy for radical change. And through interdependence and now ultimately access intimacy leads to radical change. And we must never be afraid to be radical, so we all can wholeheartedly exist through access intimacy and for our collective liberation. And we have a wonderful radical quote right there, equally radical, Angela Davis. And the quote is, open quote, we are not afraid to adopt a revolutionary start. If indeed we wish to be radical in our quest for change, then we must get to the root of our oppression. After all, radical simply means grasping things at the root. Close quote. Oh my days. Such a powerful quote. And this is how I exist, how I choose to exist, how I wish to exist. Yeah, I think this is really leading from the scholars that have been leading the way who are doing this work, particularly from the Black community and particularly from the Black disabled community, We need to acknowledge, we need to champion, we need to cherish, we need to support, we need to amplify, we need to hire, we need to consult with, and we need to pay much higher than what we're doing, because we need to support Black communities, not just Black cultures. I think that's really critical in our quest for radical collective liberation. Next slide, please. So going on to the real AI, my favorite section. So I wanted to start with this amazing quote by Octavia E. Butler, who I absolutely love. And the quote is, open quote, the very act of trying to look ahead to discern possibilities is an act of hope. What a powerful quote. And I think here Octavia is talking about our ability to imagine and not to lose hope and sight of anything. I think it's really, really important to keep dreaming, keep imagining, and keep going. And next slide, please. So yeah, I wanted to highlight this where we are at in terms of AI. So often, as I said earlier, AI is seen as artificial intelligence. So this is an article that came out yesterday in the BBC that highlighted that Elon Musk, amongst many experts, are urging a halt in AI or artificial intelligence training. And this is not surprising. I knew this decades ago that the technology is very discriminatory, it's very racist and ableist because the people creating the technology are racist and ableist. So it's no surprise here. So I think AI can change the world only if disabled people, people of the global majority, and the people of the minoritized folks are centered in the technology, creating the technology. I think it's really, really important. Next slide, please. And I wanted to highlight, so I did a tiny doodle the other day. So we have an illustration, a hand-drawn illustration of my handwriting, and it says, more access intimacy, less artificial intelligence. Access, oh, kiss, kiss. So this is how I feel, and so I think, yeah, it's really important that we need to replace one AI for another AI. And can you imagine what a world would look like if we did that? And I think that's really, really important. Next slide, please. And so this, I wanted to highlight these last few slides. I think they're very, very important to me to stay out loud. And so when we all become disabled, which most likely we all will become disabled, because we're all going to grow old, so we're all going to become disabled. Our interdependence, love, joy, hope, and imagination must always live within us. The real AI guides the way for us, and it's our collective thriving and liberation depends on it, onwards and upwards. And I wanted to highlight this because I think it's something that I've been thinking about a lot in terms of access to see how it can create interdependence and love and joy and everything within us. And so I think it's really, really powerful. One thing I wanted to highlight as well is that, so 2 seconds, this was a cough. I'm going to put myself on the mute for a second. Oh, thank you so much. So, as I was just saying, I think this is really important. I think access intimacy, AI is a real AI. I think this is really, really that we need to lean into this idea of access intimacy, of disability, of interdependence, love, joy, hope, and imagination. We cannot lose that in this world because this is what the oppressors want. They want us to be fighting each other. They want us to be so exhausted and tired and not have love and imagination and interdependence that, we can't fight the real problem, which is ableism, racism, colonialism, capitalism, the patriarchy and other systems of oppression. And this is why I say onwards and upwards. And recently this led me to read the book Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hersey, that really highlighted the need for imagination and rest, and really leaning into our joy and love and interdependence. And the next slide is something I wanted to share with all of you, and I wanted to say it out loud to all of you because I want you to believe it with all of your heart. And so, next slide, please. So, in case nobody told you today, yes, you, thank you for living. Thank you for blessing my life with your existence. Thank you for choosing to always live through love and loving me in independence. Keep living in your divinity as whole and complete people. Kiss, kiss, and they have a green heart and a sunflower, because why not? And I don't want any of you to ever forget this. I think it's so important in the work that we're doing to say it out loud to ourselves, to each other, to all that we are around us. Say it to the trees, say it to the leaves. Thank you for living. Thank you for blessing me. Thank you for always choosing to live through love. Right? Just say it to yourselves, each other, everything that you touch. Trust me, or elevate your energy, or elevate our existence. It doesn't mean that we don't face oppression or even internalized oppression. It just means that it elevates us to a higher level, and it means that despite what anyone or anything does to us, we are still divinity as whole and complete people. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the session. And here we have on the right side, we have a wonderful image of myself on my computer. And you can see the back of the computer with some stickers that says, Clip Joy, Access is Solidarity, is Disability Justice, is Love. And we have some wonderful stickers. And those stickers are Alice Wong, Rita Mingus, and Sandy Ho. And we also have some wonderful stickers that said, That Disabled Lives Matter, Radical Joy, and Create More Anti-Ableist Spaces. And those stickers are for my dear friend Jennifer White Johnson, who's also a Slow Factory Fellow this year. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. And feel free to reach out to me as well. Happy to keep up the conversation.
Thank you so much, Sulaiman. The chat is showing you so much love. If you want to click on the chat and see a little bit of the comments you've received along your presentation, so many words of encouragement and love and admiration.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. And
Thank you so much for being here, Sulaiman, and for giving us this presentation today. So inspiring, so important. As you know, you have very generously schooled me about how we can be ableist on ourselves, even if we are not disabled. And as I was sharing with you that I was so stressed that I was not refusing my body food, refusing my body rest. And you said, well, that's ableism. And that has really changed a lot of the ways I perceive things for me, for how I'm treating myself. And thank you for that. So I know I'm going to post about it soon. I want to just, create something.
My pleasure. Honestly, I think if we actually understood how Talila T.R. Lewis stated, you do not have to be disabled to face ableism. It affects all of us. It's intertwined with racism, because 50% of police brutality in the US, over 50%, is of Black and disabled people. Why are we not talking about it? Why are we not, engaging with our minds and our bodies? And no, this is not what we're going to accept. We have the opportunity right now in time. We are in the pivotal moment in time where we can create a more liberated, just, accessible world, healing world for all of us through collective liberation. I just feel really grateful to be a part of this conversation. I want to say a huge thank you to you as well, Celine, and to the Slow Factory too, for being so open and so loving and having so much access intimacy in engaging with me and supporting me, supporting my work. And I think it's really, really incredible. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sulaiman, for seeing us and for being so generous with your kindness. And also what you're saying regarding the 50% of police brutality is on disabled folks in Atlanta.
Specifically of Black disabled folks. I
Black
think
disabled folks, sorry,
there
yes,
has to be a clear distinction. We have to acknowledge that. I think, as I said earlier, we don't support the Black community, we don't support the Black disabled community enough. So I want to just be clear about that.
Yes, no, thank you. Sorry about that. Black disabled folks. So I wanted to bring it to Atlanta and the Cup City that they're building there. And I saw recently that they are connecting the dots between the Black disabled community and the police brutality and what they're trying to build in Cup City and the sort of not only environmental disaster that Cuff City will create, but also a human rights disaster, because it's going to be even less access to nature, less access to disabled folks to be able to be in places of safety. So I wanted to echo that with you.
Absolutely. And I want to give you a bit more on because that's absolutely true. The systems and structures that we live in today don't allow us to do exactly that, to live in nature, to live in each other in interdependence. And my own personal experience on the police is very, very horrific. Here in London, back in the pandemic, when it first started in May 2020, I was shielding. I wasn't able to go out at all because obviously I was terrified. I know my condition and my disability as well. Twice in 12 days, the London police raided my home for no reason. They were not wearing any masks and just came into my home to say, "Oh, we're looking for somebody. We're not engaging." They're very just putting me at high risk. So I think we need to change the system. Not even change the system, get rid of the system. And when people say, "Oh, how did you manage before the police?" People don't even understand their own history. Police system destruction have only been around for 200 years or so, right? And so before that, we had community accountability, we had pods. Again, another thing that we haven't just talked about is transformative, change and things like that. So I think that's really, really important to acknowledge that how we can support each other. And also, I could talk forever. I would love to get to some
The
questions.
question. Yes, I was just going to say, I didn't want to interrupt you, but yes, we have about 10, 12, 15 minutes tops. And the rest of the questions that we don't get to, as you know, because you attend every single Open EDU class, that we will give them to you and then you will respond in writing. So let's get to it. Do you want to take a look or do you want me to pick? I'm happy to go.
I think we can I'll get to, if you start from the top and go on, we can get to that. Try to give short answers and then I can elaborate on it further. So if you start from the top. Yeah.
I struggle explaining my neurodivergence and finding that strategies with romantic partners. Do you have any tips to navigate that?
That's such a great question, and I can feel your pain. I think it's a lot of ableism out there, and I think in terms of tips and things, I'll just again keep saying to you, keep living in your divinity as a whole and a complete person. You're needed because I need you and the world needs you, and I think it's really important to take it from there because there's always going to be people out there who love you, and those who don't are just assholes. That energy can stay in 2020, right? We don't need to be harsh with that energy. So that's all I would say in terms of specifically around neurodiversity. There's some great communities for neurodiversity. I know here in the UK there's a community called The Future is ND for neurodiverse, and there's lots of other communities that really champion and support and just allow neurodivergent people to hang out together, disengage. And I think that's what I would suggest, just find your community, find your tribe, connect with the Soul Factory. And that's what I would say again, just keep living in your divinity as a whole and complete person.
Yes. And it sounds like, yeah, sure, but it really starts from self-love. And we were discussing that yesterday with the team at Slow Factory, that a lot of decisions that we make when we are not in complete, connection with ourselves are decisions we make out of fear, out of guilt or things like that, that these emotions don't usually lead us to the best outcomes. We may not see it right away, but eventually it hits us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to highlight very quickly, talk about self-love. More and more I'm leading, going, pushing through self-love. Self-love is obviously important, but I think there's something really, really powerful about collective
Yes.
healing and community care. I cannot express to you enough how actually it's changed my life and how actually it's really, really allowed me to have that self-love in the community, in interdependence. So it's something I'm thinking about more and more, pushing beyond self-love, I think. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Next question.
Next question. My youngest brother is a high support need and nonverbal 26-year-old. How do I support him when it comes to having safe and intimate moments? I recognize this will be a team effort, including my mom and other siblings, but also want to be mindful of his privacy and needs.
I just want to highlight how incredible this question and comment is, because not only are you thinking about your brother's needs, you're thinking about how you can create privacy and support his mindful of his needs as well. So I just want to say thank you for the question. And in terms, I think the key thing is just to take the cues from your brother, even though he is nonverbal, that's okay. He's always able to engage. Just because someone is non-verbal, it doesn't mean they don't have a voice. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing is just, again, don't be afraid to ask questions or reach out to other people in the disabled community and the neurodivergent community. I think that's really, really important. And that's what's really helped me personally, just actually engaging with different people in the community, engaging with there's so much wisdom and richness within the community itself. I think that's really, really important. And just, yeah, again, keep living in your divinity as a whole and complete person and share that with your brother as well, whatever how as well. So,
Thank you,
cool.
Suleiman. Question by Maria Julia. I didn't say the names of folks before, so I'm so sorry about that. But question here, could you share an experience where you have felt access intimacy with a stranger? Stranger is in quotes.
Sure, I think a great feeling when I have access into sea is the most relevant stranger that initially was a stranger, no longer a stranger, is the Surf Factory team. I think initially how we worked was such a it was a very challenging comment. It was so again, Surf Factory shared something on the Instagram page that was slightly ableist, and I sometimes say, hey, can you this is quite harmful and hurtful, and this is why. Not only did Surf Factory understand, they actually took the time to understand, engage with me, and they had no understanding of disability politics. They had no understanding of, that much experience around disability justice and things. And that's okay. It's always about progression over perfection. And often in today's hyper-connected social media, toxic world is so quick to say, you're a terrible person. Why did you do this? No, no, no. It's okay. And allowing that idea of access intimacy, and that's really, I feel, the Surf Factory is a great example of people who are initially strangers and really now have become one of my dearest and nearest, kinsfolk. And so for me, this is what I felt. And yeah, absolutely. I hope that's helpful.
Super helpful. Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And at the end of the day, it's the intimacy is in the learning and is in being able to, humbly accept the learning, not being defensive, not being guilty about it. We talked about that in the last session regarding feeling guilty. And I have often conversations in the climate movement about folks that use guilt as a driver. And it's interesting because at Soul Factory, we kind of walk away from guilt, as much as possible. Of course, it's a big driver. People move very fast when they're feeling guilty, but it's like a kind of knee-jerk reaction and it stops there. And it then kind of backtracks, if you will, just as we observe humans as they move through guilt, it's like knee-jerk reaction. You're going to be like, I'm going to do this. And then often they like get angry and backtrack, and then the conversation is over. And so it's very important in any learning place environment that we build, even amongst ourselves, to have this space for open learning, for just like being at ease with being like, my bad, I was wrong, and let me do this better. Let me make it up to you or something.
And I'm gonna put people at ease. Even myself, I don't know anything about anything. I just what I love doing. I like asking questions. I like exploring answers. I like being interdependent with people. How can we collectively heal together? How can we collectively create community care together? And so this is what I truly feel. I think it's so important. I completely resonate with everything you're saying.
Yes. So a question here. As a neurodivergent but able-bodied white woman, how do I build able intimacy? Maybe it's access intimacy here, I'm not sure, in a co-created respectfully with communities with other disabilities.
The answer is within you, right? You basically said it in your question, respectful, right? I think as long as you're respectful and engaging and supporting communities and doing things with people and not for people, I think you can't go wrong. As long as you say, hey, this is who I am. Even myself, I always acknowledge my power and my privilege. So, number one, I'm a man that has social capital. Number two, I'm educated. I've lived all over the world, and I can engage in a way that is, able to engage. I can speak English, which is seen as the language of the world, even though English is such a foreign language. It's so done. It's just like if you say swear words in other languages, in Arabic, in Urdu, and all these incredible African languages, it's like really powerful. And but when you try to translate it into English, it doesn't really translate. And so what I would say is, you have the answers within inside you and keep living in your divinity as a whole and complete person, because just be respectful, be engaging, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. And we all make mistakes. It's okay. It's okay. Again, the progression over perfection. And
Yes. Thank you so much, Sulaiman.
Right.
Thank you for your time, your energy. Thank you for Shahrazad and Jeremy, our American Sign Language interpreters. And thank you for our team, Paloma, Nicole, Colin, behind the scenes, taking notes, making sure everything was working. And thank you especially to you, Sulaiman, and a big shout out to Sarah Khan, your sister, who was in the chat, making sure everything was going well as well. And thank you so much, all of you, for being here, for being curious, for opening up your mind and hearts towards this topic, many topics that we introduce at Slow Factory. And that's how we can become better advocates towards one another. And thank you, Sulaiman. Again, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much.
So honored to have you as a board. I'm sorry, not as a board, as a fellow, maybe futurely board, as a fellow here at Slow Factory. And thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful weekend. Any last words, Sulaiman?
Just all I would say is, don't ever forget, keep living in your divinity as a whole and complete people. I think that's what I want to. If that's the only thing you remember, that's incredible. And I think I just want to share that with you. Just keep living in your love, your interdependence, your joy, your hope, and your imagination. Don't ever lose those, because we are powerful more than you actually know. So just thank you so much to all of you. Thank you to the Flamingo interpreting team. Thank you for the interpreters, for the captioners, and thank you to the Surface team. Thank you, everyone. I love you all.
So much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you all. And have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.